everyone. I am the editor-in-chief of Beijing World Publishing Company. Hello, everyone. Today is a special event for our company's psychology salon. This is a special activity. Our psychology salon has been running for 2 years now. Over the past 2 years, we have held various informative and engaging lectures at the salon. In the past year, through communicating with friends from the salon, we have learned many people interested in psychology, very deeply interested in Buddhism and its teachings. They hope to learn more about some Buddhist teachings specifically in this context. Therefore, through the help and support of these close friends, and only after putting in a great deal of persistent and determined effort over, we were able to personally get in touch with the very famous Tibetan Buddhist master Khenpo Sodargye to give us a lecture on the subject this afternoon. Because everyone's interested in Buddhism, but actually our knowledge of Buddhism may not be very extensive, especially Tibetan Buddhism. In the past 2 years, as a publisher, I feel more and more readers are currently becoming interested in Tibetan Buddhism. Having such an incredible opportunity is truly quite rare. I feel extremely fortunate to invite a great master like Khenpo Sodargye to share with us his truly profound and insightful thoughts on Tibetan Buddhism. So we believe that by making use of this opportunity, everyone should really be able to gain a lot. I hope everyone will cherish this chance as well. Now let us have the honor of inviting the distinguished Khenpo Sodargye to give us a lecture.
Today, we are taking this time to have a discussion with everyone. The topic for today is Buddhism and personal growth. As for myself, well, if I'm being completely honest, I must say, as our host just mentioned to everyone, I am someone who is dedicated to studying Tibetan Buddhism. But today, what I want to talk about may not be entirely or exclusively about Tibetan Buddhism. It should be some important principles that are connected to Buddhism in general. This is something that we can all explore and learn together, sharing our experiences. The reason I am here today is because I was invited by them for this particular occasion. Since they reached to come here and share some spiritual. I personally am also very interested because no matter what kind of school, individual, or organization it is, truly in any case, if someone invites me, I am willing to come because there is a sense of mutual trust. This is also an opportunity for a collision of wisdom. So I am genuinely happy to accept however many people. It is very important for us to learn together throughout our lives. Today, among all of us present here, many are very young people. So when it comes to personal growth and religious faith, I believe that, in my opinion, for most people, there is in fact a certain connection. However, it is also possible that there are some individuals who, for their own personal reasons or circumstances, have not had any direct involvement with. But from my perspective, in fact, for us currently residing on this earth, it can be said that the majority of people have faith. I once saw a report that said around the year 2006, approximately when the human population had not yet reached 7 billion. At that time, it was said that the number of people in the world without faith, there are more than 770 million people worldwide. So we can say that approximately over 5 billion people currently in the world, around the globe, have faith. If China has a population of 1.3 billion. According to this statistic, if accurate, then perhaps in places like China, Africa, and some other regions, more people may lack faith here. As for the rest of the world, well, over 5 billion people are said to have faith. Some believe in Buddhism, and some in Islam, some in Christianity, Catholicism, as well as Orthodox Christianity and other religions. Overall, I truly think that for one's own personal and healthy growth in life, religious faith is very closely related. If you have faith, you have something to rely on psychologically, a sense of support, a sense of belonging. So I especially hope that among all the young people present here today, if some of you are still maybe doubtful or are even now hesitating at a crossroads and hoping to find a place for your soul to belong, then in the future, your life will become even more brilliant and meaningful and will shine with a radiant light. Today, we can also discuss it this way. In fact, when it comes to personal growth, I believe there is both psychological growth and physical growth. Some people may already be physically mature. If their minds are immature, they've not fully grown up. Some people mentally mature, but their bodies may not be fully developed yet either. From the perspective of Buddhist history, indeed, such a case has occurred. I can recall that sometimes there are people like this. Although his body has matured, but although he may look like an adult and seem mature on the outside, he's actually not. In India, there was a famous king named Prasenajit. When King Prasenajit was traveling, he saw along the way an elderly, frail man with white hair. When he encountered this man among the crowd, King Prasenajit, out of curiosity, asked the old man, "How old are you now? You must be quite advanced in age." The old man replied, "Well, in a rather unusual tone, I am exactly 4 years old now." At this, the king was quite surprised. Why only 4 years old? The old man said, "It has been just under only 4 years since I heard the truth from the Buddha. In other words, I have only just begun to accept the truth of all things in the world." In terms of my own psychological growth, you could say that I am only 4 years old now. From this perspective, some of us may also find that encounter religion. When you truly come across certain truths, it is very likely that, in fact, that is when the growth of your inner life really begins. I have also met some people who often say, the past 20, 30 years of my life does not really have much meaning to me at all. Recently, after becoming Buddhist, or after systematically listening, that my life truly gained real meaning. Only then did I truly feel belonging. So this principle applies to everyone, no matter who you are. You can't think I'm a student because I am already a worker, that my mind and body are fully mature. That's not necessarily the case. In the history of Buddhism, there was a truly great figure named Nagarjuna Bodhisattva. He used mangoes as a metaphor for people in his explanation. Some are ripe outside but not inside. Some are ripe inside but not outside. Some unripe inside and outside. Some are ripe inside and outside. Think this person seems very mature. As you interact with them, you find internally they aren't mature. Some people, when we look at them, seem very young, but their wisdom and mindset are in fact actually very mature, remarkably so. There's a story related to this as well. Once a king saw a novice monk while he was out traveling. A novice monk is someone just starting monastic life. The king bowed deeply and respectfully to him. Then he said to the young monk, "Today, since you are a monk, I pay my respects to you with reverence. But you shouldn't tell anyone a king like me bowed to you. If others found out, wouldn't be good. So you'd not tell anyone about this." But unexpectedly, this novice monk went in and out of a small glass bottle right in front of them. Then he said, "Today, I showed my supernatural powers, bottle in and out. I hope you also won't tell anyone about this." At that moment, the king realized, although his body and age were very young, wisdom, supernatural powers, miracles, the ability is extremely mature and highly well developed. He said, a monk may be very young, but he can still guide others. A young prince can still take lives. He also said, a dragon king's son may be very young, but he can still somehow bring down rain. There are many stories and examples to illustrate this point. Among us living in the human world, some people, no matter what they do, it seems for some reason, have very rich and complex thoughts, are both rational and also emotional. But there are others, although in this world, halfway through life are still unfamiliar with some truths or clueless. Such phenomena do exist. So, what is it that I want to talk to you about today? I want to say that all of us here, no matter what environment or group we find ourselves in the future, everyone should have a certain belief. In Buddhism, we talk about the three jewels, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. We should have a sincere faith in the three jewels. This is extremely important. At the same time, there is a profound law of cause and effect in this world around us. This law of cause and effect is something that everyone must abide by. Maybe young people, due to their families, society, and other past factors, may doubt whether good is rewarded and evil punished, not aware or clear about it. If some have understanding, they probably haven't developed a deep habitual familiarity with this principle. But in reality, we must make choices based on cause and effect. In Buddhism, this is considered to be extremely important. Indeed, the precepts regarding making choices according to cause and effect are very important for everyone. Some think in Buddhism this or that is not allowed. In fact, it is not Buddhism which insists on setting up a bunch of rules and regulations for you. It's not like that. Buddhism is simply about our humans' normal way of life. If you want to walk this path properly, you need to have reasonable and appropriate lawful behavior. If you don't have this behavior, then you won't be able to make it down this path. It's just like when we drive, there are traffic rules. If you don't follow the traffic rules, you can't get through yourself. Second, while traveling, you also really affect a lot of other people. So in Buddhism, as it is generally understood, we talk about good people receiving good rewards and evil people receiving bad consequences. Saying this, people maybe think if good people are rewarded, why does he often encounter a lot of difficulties and pain? And why is it some people do bad things, but the bad karma that actually happened to him was indeed quite minimal? What is the reason for this? I've addressed this question on different occasions. Many are quite puzzled by it. In this situation, goes around, comes around, doesn't mean good or bad. Acts show instantly farmers planting crops. They sow the seeds in spring, but the harvest is in autumn. It's not as if you can reap a bountiful harvest right after planting in spring. That's impossible. So for cause and effect to ripen, it needs its own time. And the conditions between the cause and its effect, this is something that everyone needs to understand. Our humans being now, you could say there are good people and bad people. I came across a teaching from Theravada Buddhism called Sutta of the Fool and the Wise, not found in Mahayana Buddhism. In it, it explains what is meant by a so-called fool. A fool is someone whose mind gives rise to evil thoughts, whose mouth speaks evil words, and whose actions create evil karma. Such people are called fools, while the wise are the opposite. I've realized it's true. In our world today, there are some people who, in fact, are never civil, no matter what they say, especially when swearing and finding faults with others. This kind of person is there are many people like this, especially when it comes to their speech. Some people have all sorts of evil thoughts, like greed, ignorance, and other negative thoughts. Driven by such evil thoughts, your actions will create negative karma. Some of you might perhaps already be aware of this. Recently, a story in current news about a car theft here in Changchun. A baby less than 2 months old was buried in the snow by the thief. What can we see and carefully analyze from this case? In the beginning, he stole someone's car, which must have been driven by greed. He thought, oh, the car is running and the key has not been taken out. If I drive, no problem. I should be able to get someone else's car easily without any effort. His first thought was probably the greed. When he got onto the highway and kept driving under an hour, realized the baby was crying back. He felt fear. And on the other hand, he must have felt anger. Afraid of being discovered, he strangled the baby to death. This is a kind of anger, but also a kind of ignorance. From start, he finally turned himself in. The first trial still called for the death penalty. Sentenced to death. Perhaps all of a person's mistakes come from a single moment of poor judgment. Driven by his overwhelming greed and insatiable desire, in just a short period of time, just an hour or two really, he wanted to gain immense wealth simply without working for it. But in the end, what did he really get? He has to pay the price for it with his most valuable and precious life itself. Whether he's sentenced to death or not, it's possible. No matter what will happen, he is living in fear. Now, and certainly in despair as well. I see many people often curse him, saying he should be killed, but in reality, killing him would also, in fact, be very pitiful. Human life and reincarnation are hard to explain. Some people, driven by ignorance, foolishness, and greed, end up doing things that cannot be undone. By the time they reflect on their actions, it's already too late. Mistakes are fixable, but others are beyond repair, leaving only deep regret. This kind of situation can actually even happen to us ourselves. So this behavior is also due to a lack of religious faith because they lack self-restraint, lacking principles, limiting actions, speech, thoughts. Last year, maybe another time, a similar incident happened in the US, but later it seemed that the child did not die. It was said that the person had faith and the child was returned to their family. Some time ago, I read a book by Yu Qiyu, a renowned Chinese writer known for his insightful works. Reading his book left a lasting impression on me in the book. A Bitter Journey Through Culture mentioned this. When he was 2 years old, someone kidnapped him and took him away. Then his grandmother chased after him outside. When he was chased outside, this man quickly ran into the temple. The kidnapper then heard the steady, rhythmic sound of the wooden fish echoing softly inside the temple, as well as the chanting of the monks. When he heard these Buddhist sounds, he was suddenly stunned. In an instant, his mind became calm. Then, very quickly, he suddenly changed his mind, meant to kidnap child. But in the end, after thinking things through and reflecting on everything that had happened, he brought the child back and chose not to take him away. Those of us who have been to temples should certainly understand this, even though you are a disgusting or escapist. Go to the temple mindful, but later on in Buddhism, we call this a kind of blessing, empowerment, or spiritual response. Temples and monks ordained possess power, that is to say, a kind of blessing. When you hear the gentle sound of chanting in the distance, your mind suddenly becomes clear and pure. This kind of situation actually happens very often, especially in Tibetan Buddhism in particular. You've probably often seen Tibetans holding prayer beads, whether they are in Tibet or even in the cities. Generally speaking, most people, especially those who are a bit older, basically, just all carry prayer beads. What does it mean to carry prayer beads? It's to repent negative karma from the past. That's one aspect. On the other hand, it is to truly purify one's own mind. Indeed, this is also reflected in their actions, such as reciting scriptures. This recitation is related to your faith. And second, it has a significant effect on your mind, helping to soften, harmonize, and regulate it in a gentle and mindful way. That's why in the tradition of Tibetan Buddhism, we often emphasize that our minds should, in fact, be purified and calm. You should recite certain mantras. For example, if you want to cultivate great compassion within yourself, feel compassion for all sentient beings. Om Mani Padme Hum, the heart mantra of Avalokitesvara. If you wish to awaken and develop your wisdom and to keep many scriptural teachings, recall the principles of the mundane and the supramundane. At this time, please recite Om Arapat-sanadi. The heart mantra of Manjushri Bodhisattva is important. If you truly and deeply wish in your heart to accomplish a task quickly, and this task must be completed in the fastest and most efficient way possible, then you should recite the heart mantra of Tara, which is the mantra Om Tare Tuttare Ture Soha. Also, during the process of, in fact, accomplishing any task, if you encounter difficulties, at that time, you should sincerely pray to Guru Rinpoche, Padmasambhava. The heart mantra, which is known as Om Ah Hung Benza Guru Pema Siddhi Hung, is recited, and when we leave this world in the future, if we die and are reborn in the Amitabha's pure land, Om Amitabha Arya Siddhi Hum Hari, the heart mantra of Amitabha Buddha. There are many such mantras like this. In fact, they possess inconceivable merit and power. Some people wonder about this kind of power. Why do the 6 syllables Om Mani Padme Hum, why do these 6 syllables possess such great power? Actually, this follows the law of Dharma. That is the natural law, the law of things as they are. What is natural law? We know that some medicines on the surface are small piece, like painkiller tablet or pain relief tablet. But each pill inside contains the power to instantly calm you down or immediately stop the pain. Among our herbal medicines, some can stop bleeding and some can cure all kinds of diseases. On the surface, for those who don't understand medicine, this seems very strange. They are herbs, parts of something, but why can one cure while another cannot? Everything, every mantra, every language has a different kind of power. Even when 2 people say the same thing, but if it is an imperial edict from the president of a country or royal decree, then what kind of effect does it have on the entire nation? If from an ordinary person, it doesn't have the same effect. Our words, when blessed by the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, this blessing, of course, can be explained in many different ways. For those beginning to learn about Buddhism, it is not required to understand it in great depth. Generally speaking, such prayers and the recitation of mantras, in fact, as a matter of fact, this can also be proven or even demonstrated by science. I once read a book called The Archives of Internal Medicine. In it, it mentioned that a research team at Harvard University, which is a prestigious institution located in the United States, carried out a comprehensive study that involved a total of 2,055 participants. During the course of the study, they carefully investigated whether the patient's conditions improved through prayer over time. They carried out a thorough and detailed probe. What did final results show? 69% participants said that their physical or emotional conditions improved to a remarkable extent as a direct result of their consistent practice of prayer. There is also a Nobel Prize winner in physiology or medicine by the name of Carroll, who is acknowledged and recognized, who notably mentioned in some of his reports as well that through prayer, in fact, prayer is truly one of the most powerful ways to generate and build strength. When we are in a temple, in front of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, if you pray with a sincere, respectful, and very pure heart, after you pray, the multitude of sufferings and numerous disasters that exist within your mind and heart can be completely purified. Now, in our present world, some people in their lives, some face issues in relationships or marriage, some in their work or within their families. When they face tough problems, you actually went to some temples, offer incense and lamps to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, then with respectful conduct, pray and make vows with a very sincere heart, then, except for some truly irreversible karma from past lives, everything else changes. And this mindset is important So in our Buddhism, the contemplation of the Mind Ground Sutra teaches in the three realms the mind is primary. In the entire three realms, the mind is extremely important. If our mind can become pure, then everything will become truly pure as well. There was a scholar who once said that only when the mind is at peace can one find the beauty of the world outside. I also resonate with this statement. If the lens of our camera or video recorder is not cleaned, no matter how beautiful the scenery is, you probably can't capture it. In the same way, if our own mindset is not truly good, no matter how colorful, vibrant the outside world is, you might not really be able to feel it arguing with family, or if you face setbacks at work, feel agitated, troubled at that moment. Even, if you look at some truly beautiful scenery, you won't be able to feel it. If you eat some delicious food at that time, you might not be able to taste its unique qualities either. This affects our mood and mental state. They have a certain relation. What I want to say is that today, as we gather here, what is it that we primarily want to understand together here today? In your daily life, in your work, each and every day, our lives themselves are a long journey where suffering and happiness alternate. Well, you could put it that way. We can say it like this: in the life journey, you need courage, the wisdom, the strength to face suffering, and perhaps even to accept suffering. I believe that most of this wisdom truly comes from Buddhist teaching. In fact, Buddhist wisdom, you could say, is all-encompassing and covers everything. It addresses everything, including both worldly and transcendental principles, such as these important ones. So I think that probably many of us need to have some degree of understanding of Buddhist teachings. At the same time, science can also prove that chanting mantras and praying can bring changes to our body and mind. As already mentioned earlier, Nobel laureates in math, they also believe this. So actions like chanting mantras and reciting scriptures, some people, including us Buddhists, some Buddhists among us, who think they have a pretty good foundation, who have studied the Dharma Gate on emptiness. Some follow Tantra, some regard themselves as possessing Pure Land root capacity, thinking, reciting Amitabha enough. No mantras, such views exist. But even these people probably need to carefully examine their own foundation. In fact, when we chant mantras and recite scriptures, this is not necessarily a Dharma practice or method intended for novices. Even some people with the highest spiritual attainment in Buddhism also need to chant mantras and recite mantras too. There is a sutra, I don't know if you have read it before, a sutra called the Sutra of Golden Light. In the Sutra of Golden Light, it is stated Bodhisattvas on the 10th bhumi rely on mantras, let alone ordinary people, such a statement. It means that in Buddhism, from the 1st to the 10th bhumi, the state is high. Even if Bodhisattva on the 10th bhumi, they still need to rely on mantras to effectively protect themselves and others. Let alone for us, the ordinary people. I often meet many people, some of whom have studied Madhyamaka and emptiness, who think that reading the platform sutra of the 6th patriarch, Madhyamaka, and Buddhist logic are enough, but hold prayer beads while reciting mantras. They consider this to be things that only elderly men and women do. We young people, college students, intellectuals, why recite mantras? That's unreasonable. We don't really understand the power of mantras. If you understood then, no matter how wise you are, you will never forget it in your lifetime. In Tibetan Buddhism, many great masters, including Guru Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche, who recited 900 million mantras. Some mantras are very long, while some are just a single syllable. Throughout his life, whenever he had free time, he would recite mantras. So in this regard, I often notice that many practitioners in Tibet, monastics or lay people, have prayer beads. But elsewhere, in some cities, perhaps even among some Buddhists, there isn't emphasis on reciting mantras or sutras. I hope in the future, for those who are true practitioners among us, this aspect also deserves attention. Moreover, when people around you fall ill or experience suffering, discomfort, or distress, all the people around, lay, Buddhist, or monastic, you can bless them by reciting mantras. Some of us think so-called blessings can only be given by gurus, talkus, or monastics, and lay Buddhists or others are not qualified to give blessings. But that's actually not the case. Anyone can give blessing. As long as you have a kind heart, you can bless others. In the past, in the history of Tibetan Buddhism, the truly great master was Lama Atisha. Once Atisha had a severe pain in his hand. He asked his disciple Drom Tenpa to bless him. Why? Because your mindset is very good. Your heart is very kind. My hand hurts. Please bless me. According to tradition, a guru blesses his disciples while the disciples bless their guru. Many Buddhists probably wouldn't accept this. How could a disciple bless their guru? It should be the guru who blesses the disciple. If the guru's mindset isn't good, if their heart isn't kind, guru isn't qualified to bless you. If the disciple's heart is very good, the disciple can bless the guru anytime frequently. This is also permissible, and in fact, it's quite reasonable. Meanwhile, in our daily life, when we see patients or people in need around us, we can also bless them. Know the Medicine Buddha Sutra. The Medicine Buddha Sutra says, if you recite the Medicine Buddha mantra 108 times and bless insect-free water, then give it to a patient, whether male or female. Any patient who drinks it, except those whose severe karma from past lives ripened, will benefit from it and have a chance to recover. Therefore, we must truly recognize and appreciate the significant power of mantras and the profound blessings of spiritual power. When we hear such teachings or the Dharma, even once, we should aspire to retain them in a lasting way and hold on to them in our cherished memory for as long as we live. This is very important. I have noticed that some Buddhists nowadays listen, Lama teaching, teaching from Buddhist scholar. But after listening, it's as if nothing's left. This so-called attending classes or studying, like taking a painkiller. I've used this analogy elsewhere before. Take a painkiller today, gone tomorrow. But it really shouldn't be like this. When hearing a truth, we should forever maintain them as absolute truths in our hearts and minds. Some of the elderly spiritual practitioners I've come to know over the years, the words and guiding principles they heard, learned, and received when they were young, they still retain them even when they are 80 or 90 years old. So in the process of learning, everyone should develop a good understanding of certain truths. This is very important. There are also some people who think that some Buddhist principles are too profound or too subtle, and that we ordinary worldly people simply can't understand them. Is it possible to repeatedly turn them into a form of humanization and vulgarization? This is unreasonable. Buddhism keeps pace with the times, people worldwide to understand it to varying degrees. But from another perspective, in fact, this kind of truth is always a truth, and it simply cannot be lowered. You may have heard this before. There is a well-known story in Mencius, one that is often told about his disciple Gongsun Chao. Gongsun Chao made a request to Mencius. He said, "The way you speak of is indeed very profound and also truly perfect. It reaches towards heaven with extraordinary height. For ordinary people in the world to accept it is extremely, extremely difficult. Could you possibly lower this most profound Tao so that mortals in the world can accept?" Later, Mencius then told him, the so-called Tao truly cannot be lowered. We should really do everything we can. Strive to raise understanding and merge it with the most profound Tao. So many of us here are quite similar to Buddhism in this regard. Nowadays, many people are fond of humanistic Buddhism. Of course, I also acknowledge that humanistic Buddhism is very good. But if humanistic Buddhism keeps lowering itself and ends up just like our businesses, as well as the state of workers and farmers, then the so-called Tao, it has lost its qualities. It should be us here, those who wish to understand Buddhism and the truth, make their effort to eliminate greed, anger, delusion, pride, jealousy, and so forth, to try our best to rid negative emotions and mindsets. We must do everything we can to enhance our own wisdom and compassion. In fact, Buddhism is an excellent form of education for purifying the human mind. This is also mentioned in the Buddhist scriptures. For example, if our body, speech, and mind can be purified, in reality, killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, lying, and so forth. That is the lowest level of Buddhist precepts, called 5 precepts. For the 5 precepts, if people can uphold them, then perhaps your family and those around you would have no choice but to acknowledge that you are an outstanding person. Thus, we see that the principles of Buddhism are not extremely restrictive or dogmatic theories like that. Specifically, they are actually completely in line with the development of human society or our beliefs and behaviors that are suitable for our progress. With this kind of mindset and approach, what should we really understand? We should truly understand the value of faith. At the same time, when it comes to faith, everyone has a certain. Yesterday, when I was talking with some teachers and students from certain schools, I found during our conversation that nowadays, in our society today, faith in Buddhism in particular, many people around me really don't understand. This is actually understandable. In fact, actually, gradually, society will change. What will it change into? At a certain point, people with faith should be considered very trustworthy. Those without faith, because they have no constraints at all, people will feel a sense of fear. In the future, such an inevitable era will indeed come. At that time, we will all understand that, in fact, humanity truly needs some form of faith. In reference books like Qi Hai and Qi Yuan, whenever faith is mentioned, they cite a passage from Collected Pearls in the Dharma Garden. A person without faith is often made fun of and mocked by others. If we are simply born without faith, we will constantly be ridiculed by others around us. This is a fact, and it is also a kind of law. Although in our current society, this is not very obvious, it will become apparent in the future, over time. Therefore, in each and every one of your own lives, I think it is extremely important to seek out of faith. This is more important than anything else. If you, especially when you are young, should seek the wisdom and understanding of faith, always. If you do not, then in the end, I'm afraid it will be too late for many things. Moreover, if we have a strong and unwavering faith, in fact, actually, our desires and suffering will decrease. The Buddha also said this, as recorded in the well-known and respected Buddhist scripture called the Sutra of Buddha's Bequeathed Teachings. According to the ancient scriptures, people with many desires actually have more distress because they have so many demands. But those with fewer desires do not have many demands, and as a result, their suffering and problems naturally decrease over time. Now, do people with faith still experience suffering? Yes, they do. Do they still go through the cycle of birth and death? Yes, they do. But in the process of reflecting on these things, they truly have a unique mindset that is quite different from those of others. We once went to Yushu after the earthquake, and at that time, many lives were lost. But the people who survived would often say, we don't need psychologists. Why is that? Because we know, everyone knows, especially the people of Yushu, about their faith. Their faith is truly, deeply profound. They feel that when facing such disasters, they are fully capable of bearing it. There was absolutely nothing like what happened after the Wenchuan earthquake or after earthquakes in other places around the world, such as where the survivors were overwhelmed with thoughts of suicide. There was no such situation here. So we feel that humanity does need a certain kind of development. On one hand, we need material things and resources to keep up with human progress. That's also very important. But what's even more important, really, even more important, is that our mindset remains calm. Our mindset should strive to reduce some of our desires. If we each let our desires expand unchecked, driven by ever-growing desires, there's nothing we wouldn't do. In the end, it leads to situations like now. For example, in Beijing, even the air is polluted, the water is polluted, and even the food is contaminated. Not long ago, I saw an entrepreneur say he was especially happy, this time happier than he's ever been before. Why was he so happy? Because when it comes to air pollution, everyone in Beijing is affected by it, including some privileged people. They also enjoy. That's why he was happy. But from a Buddhist perspective, there's no need to have a dark mindset. Even people in privileged classes are still human. If they also have to breathe polluted air, it doesn't benefit us. Honestly, I think this kind of mentality, no matter what, will indeed be something that many medical experts will reflect on regarding the future of humanity. The biggest killers are the three major cancers: liver cancer, stomach cancer, and lung cancer. Because we drink contaminated water, people getting liver cancer is increasing. Breathing in bad, impure air leads to more cases of lung cancer. I've heard that in Beijing, if you get a cough, it takes a very long time to recover. I don't know, I haven't had a cough. Maybe after a while I'll get one and see for myself. And then there's stomach cancer. These days in our modern world, a lot of the food that we eat every day, we are all in some way driven by desire, especially now in big cities, working in factories. At first, people who worked in factories were considered impressive. Everyone is envious. But in reality, under this trend, all sorts of situations can happen. I heard that during the Olympic Games, Beijing had a beautiful month of blue skies for an entire month. During that period, all factories were compelled to move beyond the city limits or temporarily shut down. After the Olympics ended, all the factories resumed operations as usual. At that point, our air, our water, and our food, there is an unprecedented sense of crisis and a lack of security. What is the reason for this? In reality, most of us, driven by self-inflation and an extremely strong sense of selfishness and self-interest, everyone is just making their own way. Logically speaking, as Mahayana Buddhism teaches, benefiting oneself and others, that is to say, as long as you can basically maintain your own livelihood, you should always help all those around you. We should have this kind of mindset. But how many people today truly possess such a mindset? It's hard to say how many there are in this world. As long as they have the opportunity, many would rather harm others just to pursue their own development, success, and fame, and to amass great wealth for themselves. They want to own, possess, and enjoy it all themselves. As a result, in the end, whether it's our entire planet or humanity itself, what will become of the conditions for our survival? Everyone should be aware of this. On the surface, it may seem that compared to any other century, we dress better and eat better, and we drive luxury cars and live in high-rise buildings. On the surface, it looks like humanity is making progress. In terms of material appearances, no previous era has seen such breakthroughs and development as today. There is a breakthrough development. But on the other hand, the decline of human morality and the fall of our compassion, or the way we now harm others and ourselves, this kind of malignant expansion from these perspectives, I'm afraid people in ancient times would never have acted like this. Especially now, whether we are producing any kind of food or making any kind of product, if there isn't a strict certification department overseeing it, it's very likely to harm countless people. So nowadays, whether it's what we drink, eat, wear, even walking, the air, everything gives us a sense of crisis. This sense of crisis is not something created for us by aliens. It's not created by other parts of the animal kingdom for us. It should be said that humanity is digging its own grave. Not only do people themselves create all kinds of unsafe and self-threatening resources and tools for humanity, but at the same time, in our current era, our desires and our demands, our luxury goods are gradually increasing more and more in number. Previously, in those days when we were kids growing up, having just one toy was enough. Even just the wrapper from a piece of fruit candy, we would play with it for a long time and cherish it. Especially for those of us from remote areas, during the new year, we'd get a few fruit candies. Back then, 10 pieces cost $1 for kids. If you got one of those candies during the new year, we'd be reluctant to eat it right away. And after eating it, the wrapper could be used as a toy for a long time. But children nowadays, from a young age, are used to dressing well and eating well. When they get to school, their demands get higher and higher. They all want to wear name brands and need high-end things. So when these people grow up, their expectations for life, some of their living standards are higher. If you set your standards of living very high, human desires can never truly be satisfied. At that point, you'll end up feeling troubled yourself. At the same time, in your actions, you might come up with many improper behavior. All of these things, I believe, play a significant role in shaping our daily lives, influencing the way we think, act, and interact with the world around us each and every day. We have indeed truly done many things that go against the laws of nature and humanity. This is also related to our education and to the loss of much of our traditional culture. These reasons are directly and clearly connected. Therefore, we also, through everyone's collective learning and effort, can achieve better results. We should always strive to be good people and do good deeds. If you do good deeds, even if you don't pray every day, if you spend all day thinking of all sorts of ways, in fact, you will most certainly be happy. There was once a person who one day did bad things and asked the Buddha, he said, if I do bad things, is it useful to pray to the gods? The Buddha did not answer him directly, use a metaphor to tell him, if you put a stone in water, for example, is it useful to pray to the gods? He said, at that time, praying to the gods is also useless. It will sink straight to the bottom. The Buddha also asked, if you pour oil onto water, then if you pray to the gods, will it make the oil sink? He said, no, it won't. The Buddha then replied, in the same way, if we do good deeds, no matter what, it's just like pouring oil onto water. It will always float on top, rising upward. But if you do bad things, commit evil deeds, it's just like a stone being dropped into water. It sinks straight to the bottom. Your actions will inevitably bear fruit sooner or later, eventually. This is taught in the middle-length discourses, Madhyama Agama. The miscellaneous Agama, Sayukta Agama, also says, if a person truly and sincerely cherishes themselves, then they should, with care and intention, cultivate and practice all kinds of good deeds and virtuous actions. They will quickly obtain all sorts of true happiness. If we truly and sincerely perform all kinds of various good deeds, it is only a matter of time before we attain all happiness. These two is the coming together of causes and conditions. I believe that as Buddhists, as people of faith, he will forever remain in a state of happiness and joy. Within our Buddhist doctrine, there exist numerous concepts and teachings that transcend ordinary human imagination, many accomplishments and spiritual responses that cannot be described in words. What I am saying today, perhaps, is that in Buddhism, one aspect is about facing the challenges in our current lives, the ability and courage to deal with all kinds of suffering. This is the benefit of Buddhism. At the same time, through practicing the Dharma, one can gain freedom over life and death. There have been countless examples of this throughout history. Perhaps what people fear most is falling ill or dying. People fear when someone dies, and they fear it for themselves too. Some people are too scared to mention it. When death is brought up, they avoid the topic. They always use certain words to cope with it. In fact, Buddhism has always provided a very good arrangement for this in advance. It's been since ancient times. In our Tibetan Buddhism, there are quite a few such cases. Some enlightened beings, not only themselves, but even many members of their families also attain a kind of enlightenment. All of them achieve a pure state. There are such cases as well. For example, in front of Zen Master Daoyi in the past, during the Tang Dynasty, a lay practitioner named Pang Yong. He was an extraordinary, accomplished practitioner. His whole family all attained rebirth in different forms. I'm not sure if I've mentioned this story before. When Pang Yong reached a certain point, his realization was very profound. He threw all his money into the sea. I love the moment of silence, but too much gold can confuse people. He said that money often easily makes people's minds restless. He especially cherished as a piece of each moment. Later, when he was preparing for death, he said, "At noon on a certain day, I will leave this world." At that time, he asked his daughter called Lin Jiao to check whether it was noon. Afterwards, his daughter became frightened that he might pass away, just as he had described. So she came out and said, "Well, it's not noon yet." At this point, Layman Pang didn't believe her, so he came out to check for himself. His daughter was also a practitioner who mastered life and death. Then, she sat in the father's place and passed away while sitting. When her father saw this, he realized his daughter had already left this world. He took care of her funeral arrangements over the next 7 days. Later, he himself passed away while lying down. When his wife at home heard that both her daughter and husband had already, one passed away sitting and the other passed away lying down, each with a different posture, she felt a bit unhappy about it. Why did they die so quickly? So she told her son happened to be weeding in the fields, holding a simple farming tool, weeding the crops. She told him, "I am sorry to say, your sister and your father have both sadly passed away." Then the son said, "Since they died sitting and lying down, then I'll die standing." So he stood there holding his tool and died in the field. After he died in the field one day, his mother said, "All of you in this family have left like this. If only I am left here and everyone else is completely gone, then I should be different from you all and pass away in a different posture." Then she took care of all their necessary funeral arrangements. After everything was settled, she began to prepare for her own passing. When she was about to quietly pass away from this world, she also thoughtfully left behind a meaningful verse: "To die while sitting, lying down, or even standing is nothing particularly remarkable or extraordinary. And now, just like Pang Po did, I simply let go and return to where I came from. With both hands I part the smooth, seamless stone, leaving no trace for anyone to find." She recited this verse, then opened the seamless stone and entered inside. She didn't even leave behind a single hair or fingernail. What she meant was, in my family, some passed away while sitting, some passed away while lying down, and some while standing. None of these are particularly rare. As for me, I don't bother with those. When I want to leave, I part a seamless stone and leave this world without leaving the slightest trace behind. So this is not just a myth or legend. When we look through the biographies of eminent monks from previous generations, these things have actually occurred in history. Even to now, in our Tibetan region, there are many such cases. For example, during the Cultural Revolution, there were people who flew to Pure Lands and some who reached the rainbow body. There are those who didn't leave hair, fingernails. In some cases, the body shrank completely, leaving only a tiny bit behind at the end. Cases like this. So when we look at all these different phenomena, each of them provides evidence, and collectively they clearly show that there is a consistent pattern or underlying principle at work here. The power of Buddhism is not as we might imagine. Because of our education, some of the things we learned in elementary school regarded it as a kind of narcotic or as an opiate, or used other metaphors to describe it. So this is an unreasonable form of education. Nowadays, internationally, people should understand what true religion is. Especially in 2009, Buddhism was awarded the best religion in the world prize. What was the reason for this? One reason is that Buddhism has never, in its own name, initiated any war, nor has it ever committed any act that harms any living being. Another reason is that it is a truth that has been scientifically proven and is absolutely certain. This is what Buddhism describes. So in the short time we have today, we can't cover everything in Tibetan Buddhism, the profound and vast principles within Buddhism. However, as a humble attempt to inspire greater understanding, I should at least briefly explain a bit to everyone. In fact, human life is extremely precious and rare. Rare to be born human. It is necessary for us to understand the knowledge of Buddhism. At the same time, this truth applies in life. If we use it in our own life, then at least in the short term, it can help reduce various pressures we face, as well as all kinds of confusion and worries. Ultimately, for humanity and for the entire world, we will also make a certain contribution, because every single one of us has an impact on our respective families, and we influence many people around us in various ways. If our hearts are kind, then many people around, use everyone we come into contact with, he will eventually become kind. If my actions are evil, evil will spread from one to another, and this will bring inauspiciousness to the whole world as well. Therefore, each of us should take responsibility and strive to become a compassionate and kind-hearted person. When you become a kind-hearted person, you are like a lamp. At the very least, you can dispel the darkness around you. Gradually, as the light is passed on non-lamp to 10 to 100, eventually the whole world will be illuminated. I think I'll end my introduction here for today.